Hi, folks. I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Calvert alongside Father Joe Grimaldi, and welcome to the Father Joe Grimaldi Podcast. The Father Joe Podcast is proudly supported by our good friends at Houghton McInerney Star Lincoln at 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield. Mention you heard about Star Lincoln on the Father Joe Podcast, and you will receive additional savings. Now make sure you check out the all-new Nautilus and the MKC, Houghton McInerney Star Lincoln, 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield. We're in the kitchen. We always talk about this, but it's a true story, right? Don't we always start in the kitchen?
We do. It's a good way to start.
Yeah, a little cup of coffee, a little coffee talk, as we've mentioned before. And I don't even know how you brought it up, or did I bring it up? We were talking about
yesterday was the feast.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, but we were talking about a couple of responses to our podcast on Do You Believe in Miracles? And we're not talking about Al Michaels when the USA beat Russia back in the 80s. No, we're talking about real miracles. And then we segued into yesterday's feast day, the feast day
of the Guardian Angels.
And I said, have we ever talked about guardian angels? And you said, no, we've talked about angels, but not guardian angels. So, Father Joe Grimaldi, I'm Ken Calvert. Do I have a guardian angel?
Oh, I think you do. We all do.
Mm-hmm.
Another way of naming it would be personal angel. We each have personal angels. The Lord has given us that gift as we try to make our journey towards the promised land, which for us would be heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And the angels there to guide us along the way. I think what's interesting, very often we just associate that with children. I mean, inevitably, if you go into a Catholic home and visit the little bedroom for the newborn, there's always an image of the guardian angel on the wall, and the guardian angel that's supposed to take care of that child.
Sure.
Well, the guardian angel takes care of that person.
Mm-hmm.
Not just as a child, but as that person grows, as that person tries to achieve his goals or her goals until it gets to the final goal, which is the promised land, another way of saying heaven. Huh?
Yeah.
So basically that's what the guardian angel does. It's gifted to us. I think in the minds of the people, is it a fairy tale? Is it something made up to appease people? So I think we have to go beyond that. And I think I interrupted you, and I'm sorry, you were going to ask a question, I think.
That's a tough one to try and explain to people.
Yes.
If you're just, if you had a buddy who wasn't Catholic or wasn't even Christian or was Christian or whatever, a lot of people get into the intricacies of the Catholic Church.
Right.
Aren't you the guys that have the guardian angel? Yes, we are.
Yeah.
You believe in a guardian angel? Well, I believe that the guardian angel may be some sort of a moral compass on board that I have.
Yeah.
That sort of helps me do the right thing.
Yeah, I like the way you named that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you were saying that it's...
I just think that some people think might be a fairy tale or whatever the case might be.
And of course, a lot of people are going to think that, Joe. That's just the way people are.
But by the same token, everything that the church teaches is usually biblically based. There is nothing that the church teaches that's just kind of made up. Most of it is biblically based or tradition with the capital T. In other words, the words of Christ as interpreted by the people that saw him, eyewitnesses, the apostles. Okay, so when we speak about guardian angels, we speak about angels in general. You find reference to them even in the Jewish scriptures. So we're talking thousands and thousands of years past when you speak about the Jewish scriptures.
Without doing a deep dive, does anything come to mind in the Jewish scripture that you can think of?
Well, first of all, we have, if you look at the wisdom literature, the Archangel Raphael is mentioned, and that's in the Jewish scriptures in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, Jesus is talking to the disciples, and the disciples are saying how difficult it is to enter into heaven. And Jesus tells them, unless you become like a little child, You will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Well, what is he talking about when he says, unless you become like a little child? Well, basically, we have to be childlike, not childish. Mm-hmm. And there's a big difference. In other words, we have to depend on God's providence. And then Jesus goes on to say that the little child has been given an angel to guide it along the way onto the final phase of that person's life.
Is there anything wrong with a parent saying to a young child, "Oh, don't worry, don't forget now, you've got your guardian angel"? I'm talking about like a thunderstorm or a scary situation, or and for any reason the child is having a difficult time and is like concerned about somebody that they know is sick, and they may not understand why is grandma or grandpa sick, and I'm having a difficult time sleeping. Is it okay then to rely on somebody saying, "Oh, well, you try and get a good night's sleep, you've got your guardian angel and grandma's got hers, and everything's going to be just fine"?
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of putting it, and it could easily be used, and it should be used. I just am reminded that you and I, all of us, sometimes are used as angels. And what do I mean by that? If you were to look at that program that existed a few years ago, it was called Touched by an Angel.
Yes.
What's interesting about that program, in my mind, there's nothing in that program that seems to go against theology. In other words, the theology of angels. Now, it's rare that God uses angels as human beings, or they take over the bodies of human beings, but there's nothing that says that it can't happen. Now, you stretch that a little bit further, very often we could become angels to other people. And God is using us in that way if we're open to being used that way. In other words, we see a person who's headed really downhill by the way he's living a very reckless life.
Yeah.
Well, we might be the guiding light, because that's what the angel would do,
sure,
is guide.
Yeah.
And so we might be the guiding light for somebody else. In a way, we're acting like those angels and touched by an angel. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be so supernatural looking. Mm-hmm. It could be human things that we do to help others. So we can be used if we're open to it. So in other words, what we're doing is we're helping somebody deal with life in a better way rather than a destructive way.
In vernacular, you always hear things like, "Oh, bless your heart," or "God bless you." You hear a lot of, "Oh, good Lord," especially these days, right?
Well, you could also hear things like, "Wow, you're an angel," the way you've
took
helped
the
me.
words right out of my mouth, yeah.
Or
I actually used to hear that a lot from my folks and my grandfolks. They would just say, "Oh, thank you, dear, you're an angel."
You're an angel.
Yeah.
Or there is a more official business angel. That someone who contributes a lot of money to a project, he's called an angel, mm-hmm. Which makes that project flow.
Charities with their name based on the word angel.
Yeah. So, and then
people, personal names.
Yeah, and then you have the angel that in fundraising and so on and so forth.
I see what you're saying, in a philanthropic way.
Yeah, and they call him an angel.
Sure.
Why? Because that angel is helping things move along, and that's what angels do.
It's amazing when we just sort of started at the very beginning talking about angels. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere because the angel is God's way of communicating with human being. The angel is, let's put it this way, the angel, of course, is pure spirit. However, super intelligence is given to that angel, and it's God's way of communicating with human beings. I think every time we feel an inspiration for the good, I think it's coming from an angel. Use that in quotes if you want, but by the same token, that's what I mean. It's God's way of communicating. That's what an angel does. It communicates God's will to us here on earth. And if you look at that program that I mentioned before, Touched by an Angel,
right,
they harp on that a lot, that this is God's intervening with this person's life.
It's interesting. A couple of programs on right now. One is established and very popular with Ted Danson. It's called The Good Place, and it's a remarkably well-done show.
Oh, wow.
And people try and determine, is it purgatory? You know what I mean? It's like the good place. They're not quite there yet, but they've had a situation where they're no longer with us. But they're in this place, and they call it the good place. It's a good show, really well done. And Ted Danson's marvelous in the program, as are all the other actors. CBS just announced another new show, which just started, and it's called, it's very popular with the rhetoric now, God Friended Me. It's kind of interesting, given all of what's going on with the topography right now and in all of politics and everything else going on in our lives. Hollywood has still found an opportunity to embrace some good things.
Well, I want to mention
some Christian-like things.
If I can add something to that,
sure.
Is that, we spoke about the dwindling numbers in the mainstream religions.
Yeah.
What's happening? What's happening is people are much more interested in spiritualism as opposed to a structured type of religion. So that many people are spiritualists. They believe in a higher being, but they are more comfortable with the idea of a spiritual existence in the world. They may not even call it God. It's just a higher being, okay? But it's interesting how, despite the fact they don't want that structured religion, they do want that spiritual aspect of life. And this is why one of the reasons I think that you have these programs appearing on TV.
I talked with a good friend of mine yesterday, Dave Coulier, very, very popular television star, comedian, grew up in Detroit, went to Notre Dame High School. He was on, and he continues to still be on, Fuller House, but the show that established Dave was a show called Full House. Full-on family show. Yes. And it thrived for 7 years. In reruns, it's off the meter. So he's been reintroduced to 2 new generations.
Yeah.
Show now called Fuller House. Same cast, all grown up. Now they have kids, okay? It's doing great. It's on Netflix. I'm talking about Dave Coulier because of the fact that he's one of the few comics that still goes out in tours, but only on the college campuses.
Okay.
I found this very ironic. College campuses want really clean, safe, nice comedians. They don't want politics in their comedy. They want fun. They want, they just want to have a good time. They just go, Calgon, take me away. And he said, I'm probably one of 5 in the country doing that right now. Jim Gaffigan, who's on the CBS
oh, sure, I know.
Sunday morning program, CBS Sunday morning. Another guy by the name of Brian Regan, never swear, ever, ever in their careers. It's nice to know that people still have a moral compass and a moral code that they follow and still can be incredibly successful. So I have 2 really simple questions for you. Do you think people ever get to meet their guardian angel?
In the next life, yes.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
No kidding.
I'm convinced.
All right.
You know what? We're going to meet a lot of people in the next life.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, me too.
That's what I'm hoping.
Parents, friends, relatives, siblings that have gone before us.
Yeah, people,
I believe in that.
People maybe we've never met before.
They should be interesting, too.
Yeah, that should be. It's going to be a lot of fun, isn't it? It's going to be a lot of fun. Number 2, is it possible for me to believe at some time that one of my parents could be an angel? Is it possible? Is there anything wrong with somebody saying, sometimes I feel like my dad's in the room with me?
I wish I were more of a scientist. I think that would be just your dad, because you're speaking about 2 different kinds of creation.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the creation of the human person, and your dad is going to be your dad. And what I believe anyway, your dad is now enjoying the reward that was promised to him and promised to us.
Right.
And this is why I believe we'll be reunited in the future. But I also believe that because he's in a place that's beyond our thinking and imagination, he has powers that go beyond human powers. And this is why I do believe that a father like yours or any father would watch after his son, after his daughter.
And my mom, too.
And your mom, too.
Yeah.
I'm just using one.
I'm just saying.
But they're human beings.
Yeah.
They're not See, angels were created as such. They're created as spiritual beings. They're whole different. It doesn't make it any... your parents are not any less or better because of it, but I think they're different. You have human beings, but you also have the angel world.
Final thing, we just wanted to say hello to our friends at Guardian Angels.
Yes.
The church up the street.
Yes.
Where you, on occasion, say Mass.
Of course.
They had to be very excited about having their day.
They did. It was a beautiful day yesterday, too, so it worked out well.
Well, where were you? Wasn't it raining like heck yesterday?
No, I thought you meant beautiful in the sense of feast day.
No,
but,
it's a beautiful feast day, and I'm sure that they celebrated, as we like to do with you guys each and every, well, I like to say Thursday, Sunday mornings, spending them with Ken and Joe, along with you, wherever you may be. But we certainly thank you for listening.
I appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
Father Joe Podcast, proudly supported by Houghton McInerney Star Lincoln, 12 Mile Road and Telegraph in Southfield. Want you to mention Star Lincoln? Mention you heard it on the Father Joe Podcast. You'll receive the Father Joe Star treatment. Make sure you check out that Nautilus and MKC. Houghton McInerney's Star Lincoln, 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield. See you next time, folks.
Take care. Bye now. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe Podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.